All right, we are at our second to last call for December. It's crazy that there's only one more of these before the end of the year, but here we are. Um, so this is call number two in a three-part call series where we're talking about just how to prepare for the year that is about to start. And last week we talked about our environment. So we broke that up into the stresses that we face, the boundaries that we set, and then the routine or lifestyle that we experience daily. So this week we're going to talk about our mind and our mindset, which determines how we look at and respond to and make decisions within the environment that we reviewed last week. So, with last week's activities, we had there were like three prompts that I gave you guys to just think through or use as a journal prompt. And those kind of established awareness of the environment that you do have, but just being aware of your environment doesn't necessarily mean that change is going to happen. So if change isn't going to happen simply by being aware, then we need to actually take action. And when it comes to mindset, you can kind of think of it like a filter for your life. So everything that you think or see is going to go through that filter of your mindset and then come back on the other side. And we want to make sure that that filter isn't negative or holding you back, or even, if you're trying to reach goals, if it's just complacent. So having like a goal oriented and driven and positive mindset is something that can be super, super powerful when you're just trying to reach any kind of goal. It doesn't just have to be health or fitness. So when we have thoughts, those thoughts are going to shape our decisions and our behaviors. And our decisions and behaviors are what become our habits. And then your habits will lead you to certain outcomes, good or bad. So that's kind of like the flow that we're trying to follow tonight. I don't have Schlase with me, so this is going to be a little bit of a monologue here. But you know, if at any point you guys have questions, or if you are watching the replay and you have questions, please chime in. I'd love to actively work through some of these items with you guys. This is something that I do with my clients as well. We just talk about, what might be holding you back, or what things you feel are roadblocks. That's actually a question in my intake form that I send to clients. What's a roadblock or something that you feel like might prevent you from reaching your goals? So it's important that we identify those things. But basically for today, I'm going to go through the activities that we did last week, and I'll just kind of like twist those into mindset. So instead of just being aware of and analyzing our environment, we're going to say, okay, now how do we feel about that? What are we going to do about that? So the first category of environment that we talked about was stressors. And we asked, what are your stressors, and are you ignoring, tolerating, or eliminating those stressors? And I think there are a couple questions that you can ask as follow-up questions that have to do with mindset that give you an idea of what I really mean when I say that your mindset is a filter. So if you have some stressors that you're ignoring or tolerating, what do you believe you have to ignore or tolerate? I feel like everybody has things that they think they have to do. And really, we don't have to do anything. There are things that we need to do for, things for our family and for our children. And there are requirements. Yes, I'm not saying that there aren't, but there are also a lot of things that we feel like we need to do or we have to do them. And we just do them because it's always been done that way, or because it seems like it's the easiest route, or, whatever the reason might be. But you can ask those questions. Like, do you actually believe that you have to ignore or tolerate something? Or could you consider the possibility of eliminating a certain stressor that you're currently ignoring or tolerating? And if you are thinking of eliminating a stress, that also means that you believe that you have the ability to change your stressors. So if you believe that a certain stressor is changeable and you can eliminate it, then it is. You just do it. And without an example, it's kind of hard to illustrate that, but an example will be different for everybody. And hopefully just talking through it like this will give you some ideas of how you can think about those stressors. Stress isn't about only what's in front of you right now. It's also that constant noise in the background of things that are unsettled or incomplete. So if there are things that let's say you can't eliminate them, but you recognize that those are stressors that are kind of constantly going in the background in your head, you can change how you react to it, how you think about it, and how you let it affect you when it's not an immediate concern. So I think for me personally, a lot of times tasks are my stressors. And so there is a lot of the planning going on of when am I going to do this thing? This thing still isn't done. What is the deadline for doing this thing? And all of that stress leading up to me actually doing it um, isn't always necessary. So I say this for not only you guys, but myself, that constant noise in the background, that is something that you have the power to change, even if you can't get rid of the stressor. So I don't want you guys to feel like I'm sitting here and saying, stressors, get rid of them. You don't need them. Just eliminate all of them. You don't have to do anything. That's not true. I know you got to do things, um, but we have more power and more control than we let ourselves think. One moment while I stop my dog from eating wrapping paper. It's very Christmas themed. Hey, go. Let's not eat that. Okay. All right. Perfect time for a transition. After stressors, we talked about boundaries. And the question for boundaries or the journal prompt was what fills your cup versus what empties it? So this one is somewhat tied to what do you have to do? Um, and determining whether those things actually fill your cup or if they're emptying it, and how you can prioritize things that will fill your cup and minimize the emptying effect of some of the more emptying tasks that you do. So, for filling your own cup, I think a lot of women have, especially women with families, have trouble with feeling guilty when you are either saying yes or no to certain things. So if someone is asking you to take on another responsibility or another task, there's guilt when saying no. And there's sometimes guilt when saying yes to things that are going to benefit your own health, or, feeding into this whole like, does rest to you feel like laziness? Is relaxation this luxury that you haven't allowed yourself to have because of everything that's on your plate? Um, and some questions you can ask yourself if you do have some of those feelings are, what beliefs do you have around self-worth? So do you feel like you're worthy of taking that time? Do you think other people are worthy of taking that time, but not yourself? So that's something really important to look at. Even just picturing yourself as a separate entity and then asking, if I were talking to a friend or a loved one, would I be treating myself the same way? Um, so self-worth feelings, also your feelings about productivity. So sometimes we get stuck in this trap of feeling like if we're not doing something that's productive, then we shouldn't be doing it and it's a waste of time, or we're being lazy or just not behaving the way that we should behave. Um, Allowing yourself to do something that might not be the most productive, but it does fill your cup. That is important. You don't have to go overboard, but we're just trying to find a balance here. Because if you're on this call and you're listening and this is something that you feel like resonates with you, then you are probably not in balance. So we talked a little bit about your responsibility to others versus yourself, and I think a lot of people have trouble with giving themselves the same attention that they would give to someone else who is in a similar situation. So instead of feeling like, I guess if you are someone who is busy, instead of feeling like you should be able to handle everything on your plate, just recognize that you can show up better when you respect your own boundaries in the same way that you would respect somebody else's boundaries. So if somebody came to you super stressed out, because what's a good scenario? You're planning a Christmas party. So let's say you're planning a Christmas party with someone else. That person comes to you, and it's supposed to be a 50-50 split, but they come to you and they're like, I'm so stressed. I just had this stuff happen with my family, and I'm also trying to like focus more on my health, and I just can't juggle all of this plus the Christmas party. Are you able to pick up a little bit of slack? Now, let's assume that you are in a position where you can pick up the slack. But if you're not, being okay with having someone else help you, reaching out to the people around you and like practicing that as a skill will give you not only the confidence to do it again, but it'll give you space to show up better when you're actually working there. So I guess everybody in that story could benefit from just uh, recognizing their boundaries. So the person who came to the other person saying, hey, I need help, was recognizing their boundaries. And then you can also recognize your boundaries. If you can't pick up the slack, bring in a third person, like it doesn't, I think sometimes we get so stuck on things going a certain way that, and the role that we play. We kind of talked about this on last call with Shalace, how we were talking about it's hard to let go of something that might be your baby. And we're getting a little bit work focused, but in a health and fitness space, let me think of an example here. Um, okay, not to pick on husbands, but I'm going to pick on husbands a little bit. Um, if your husband is relaxing on the weekend, or maybe he's taking the kids out doing something fun, and you feel like you have to work because the kids and the husband are out of the house, you have to work to clean up, but you like clean up and do all the chores so that when they get back they have this super nice clean home and you have a home cooked meal. You want to be this like vision of wife that you've created, wife and mother. But if you do all of that, you won't have time to go to the gym. And you told your coach, like, I'm going to get to the gym this week. And you need to hit those workouts. Finding that balance, being able to hit both, maybe having a discussion with your spouse saying, like, hey, what is most important to you? Is it important that I have a home cooked meal? Or is it important that I clean the house and have all the chores done? Like, what means more to you? Because I can't do both if I'm going to take care of myself as well. And that's the moment where you are respecting your boundaries, you feel like you are worthy of taking that time for yourself, and you recognize that if you've gone to the gym and you also have time for chores, you're going to feel like a much more happy and satisfied and complete version of yourself when your family actually does get home. So it can feel scary at first to give up control, and also feel like you're not living up to the standards you've set for yourself or other people have set for you. But in the end, if you communicate, it usually turns out much better than you could have imagined. So some other questions about boundaries that you can think about. We talked a little bit about having feelings of guilt when you're saying yes or no to certain things. I really like to have people look closer at that guilt and find what the source wound is. So that guilt is not something that is inherent. It's not like you saying no to something or yes to something makes you a bad person. You saying yes to getting in your workout or having a spa day when you've been having a tough time, anything like that, that is not something that makes you a bad person. but it can feel that way sometimes. So really looking at that guilt, uh, hearing the stories that you're telling yourself when you're feeling that guilt. Are you telling yourself that if I take this time for myself, I'm taking away time from my family and they deserve to have more of me? Or, what does that sound like in your head? Who is that voice that's saying those things inside of your head? Because while it might feel like you, it's not you. It is a story that we've just told ourselves for so long, whether that's something that was sourced externally or internally or a combination of both. It doesn't have to be the way that it is. That guilt shouldn't be something that you're feeling when you're doing what's right for you. So, our last topic was routine and lifestyle. Sorry, this dog tonight. Ugh, we're going to hold him right here. Okay. Um, Last topic for routine and lifestyle. We said, when was the last time you said yes to yourself? There's a lot of things implied here. Um, I already mentioned this. Does rest feel like failure to you? So if you are always saying no to the things that you want to do, which in this discussion is usually either self-care or resting or taking things off of your plate, does that feel like failure? Who is that voice in your head that's judging you for these things? And what fears are behind those negative thoughts? Are you afraid of how you're going to be seen um, by your coach if you don't do your workout? That's a little bit of like a flip on this on this narrative. So if you are constantly um how do I want to how do I want to put this? If you're constantly going to the gym and making sure you get your workouts, but you're also like burning yourself out, so kind of the opposite end, um you don't feel like you can keep up with the program that's assigned, but you feel like if you don't do the workout, then your coach is going to see you a certain way, or you're going to feel like you're letting down your coach. Like that's a moment where even that boundary of setting a boundary of this is not a plan that I can keep up with right now, or just open communication about that, it matters. That's exactly what we're talking about, but just the opposite. It's not always that like going to the gym and following the plan exactly is going to be the right thing for you. Maybe the plan needs to adjust in order for it to be right for your current environment. So those are conversations that I know that Shalise and I, Steph and Damien, we all have with our clients about shifts in life throughout the year. Changing the plan is needed. So in, a lot of the examples that I've been giving have been if you're not going to the gym, but there's also examples on the other side of if you are going to the gym and you're like, I can't do this anymore. You're overworking yourself on in one area and it's not giving you enough time in another area. Um, let's see. So when you do hear like a negative voice in your head, either judging you for making a certain decision, um, or when you think about making a decision, you hear those negative thoughts and then it prevents you from making that decision. Try to show compassion for yourself in those moments. So it's okay for you to be uncertain about those decisions. And it's okay for you to have those negative thoughts as long as you recognize that that isn't what is going to determine what you do next. So if you can show compassion, like if you've dug deeper and found out, like, okay, what is that source wound that I'm looking for? Like, why do I feel like I always need to be productive? Why do I feel like I'm constantly letting people down? Um, find the source wound there and just like hug it, give it a big hug and tell it it's okay. And then make that choice to change afterward. Don't just fall back into old habits and listen to those negative voices and stay in that same cycle. Break that cycle. Um, and I think when you do break that cycle, one question that might be really impactful is and just, like, to remind yourself of breaking that cycle is asking yourself, "If I trusted myself more, what would I do differently, or what would I change about how I how I live my life?" So, there's a lot of questions here that I think you can explore on your own, and it does take a lot of time individually. But if you want to have conversations with somebody, I'm more than happy to set up calls to talk through some of these things and just help you like work through those feelings and prompt that discussion a little bit, because it's not like I can tell you anything about yourself or solve any of the problems that you're going through, but I can be a mirror, to what it is that you're feeling and experiencing. And so that's just what I try to do, for my clients anytime something with mindset comes up. Um, so without the dialogue, it's kind of like half the time, which makes sense because Shalace usually chimes in here. But I think to wrap up this call, we'll keep it short today. To wrap up this call, just be open to examining your thoughts and really, really paying attention to the thoughts that are running through your head every single day and the way that you are seeing the world. So if you are constantly looking out in the world and you feel like you're receiving negative things from it, try to look at the positives of that situation. Try to show compassion for like everything and everyone in the scenario and then see how things change. If you feel like you never have opportunities, truly start telling yourself, like, I have the opportunity to make this day a good day, or I have the power to make this day a good day. I'm like, I'm a big believer in there's no like one right way to to think or be or um meditate or like get to know yourself. So whatever feels the most genuine to you, that's what you should do. So if it's journaling, journal. If it's talking with a therapist or a coach, do that. If it is writing down post-its and sticking the post-its on your mirror every single time that you have like a negative thought and you flip the thought into a negative. So, for example, if you're like, man, I just really don't like the way that I am looking right now, like physically, your body, then you can write the opposite of that. Say, I love my body and all the things that it allows me to do, and put that on a post-it and put it on your mirror or wherever you want to put it. Um, Something as simple as just something to break that cycle. That's kind of the theme of all of these activities that I've given you is it's just look at what your environment is allowing you, then look at your thoughts around that and break any negative cycles that you see. This isn't something that's going to change your life in a day. It does take time, it takes practice. You're never going to be able to get rid of the stress or like negativity in your life. But going back to kind of what we talked about earlier, you can control how you react to it, what you think about it, how that shapes your decisions going forward. Um, you can let the positive parts of your days and the positive moments in your life shape how you make decisions and instead of the negative ones, and see how that opens up the possibilities for you with your goals that you're trying to reach. And that doesn't mean to just ignore all of the bad things that happen in the world or to accept negative things as uh I don't know, as like a as just part of the journey. It doesn't mean that you have to accept them and not feel anything. You can still feel negative emotions, but then move on from them. So, I'm getting a little bit off topic here because I don't want to touch too much on what we're going to talk about next week. But let me let the dog out of this room and then we'll continue. Okay. So next week we'll be talking all about the actions that you can take and setting up a plan for your goals and keeping yourself accountable throughout the year. So I will kind of stop here for now and we can continue next week. And maybe next week in the beginning, we do a quick overview with Shalay so that we can hear her thoughts on the topics from this week's call, and get a little bit of her input. And then we'll move into kind of the action plan portion. So let's do the same thing that we did last call. I will summarize the questions that I like, the follow-up questions to the activities that are related to mindset that I brought up on this call. So for stressors in our environment that we might be tolerating, or sorry, ignoring, tolerating, or eliminating, um, let's see, what's our question here? What do you believe you have to ignore or tolerate? And then what do you believe is changeable and therefore you have the ability to eliminate it? So those are two questions about stress. Next is boundaries. What fills your cup versus emptied it? Um, and our questions here are, what beliefs do you have around self-worth and productivity? And what is the source wound for feelings of guilt that you have when you're making certain decisions or saying yes or no to certain things? And then for routine and lifestyle, our question for our activity from last week was, when was the last time you said yes to yourself? And our questions here are, does rest feel like failure to you? And then the other question is, if I trusted myself more, what would I change or do differently? So go through those prompts, see what you learn, and if you have any questions or want to talk through anything, any of the coaches would be happy to chat with you guys and help give you a little bit of potentially perspective if it's related to health and fitness. And then if it's not related to health and fitness, maybe just a listening ear to help you say it out loud and see how you say it to another person and see if that shows you anything new about how you feel about the situation. So um, I will stop the recording here, but happy Monday. And we will talk on December 29th, the last call for December. Gonna start putting some goals in place, some action plans for 2026. Thank you guys, and we'll talk soon.